North Carolina's Facts Task Force has released its first report. One of the task force members is Dr. Terry Stoops. He is the director of the Center for Effective Education at the John Locke Foundation. And Terry, before we talk about what's in the report, remind us, what is this Facts Task Force?
Earlier this year, the lieutenant governor and his staff assembled a group of experts in education to come together to form a task force that would evaluate concerns expressed by parents and students and educators about instances of indoctrination in the classroom. This work involved creating a portal by which these families and public school employees can be able to anonymously send assignments and other instructional materials through the portal to be able to be evaluated by the task force. And so this is the first report that we have produced as a task force based on around 500 submissions received from roughly March through the end of the school year in June. And from what we can tell, the portal will continue to be active, so we may see subsequent reports from the submissions that we'll receive after the beginning of the current school year.
Now, you already mentioned more than 500 submissions. What else should people know about this first report?
Well, it's interesting because I think we weren't really sure what we were going to get. And there really are three different types of submissions that we received. The first was submissions from parents of matters that they were concerned about, but really didn't rise to the level of concern, didn't rise to the level of addressing that concern with school administrators or school board members. It could have just been a topic that the parent didn't like, but it was a topic that was consistent with the standard course of study and really what we would expect teachers to cover in the classroom. The second type of submission was a submission from a teacher or a parent of something that truly was problematic, of a teacher trying to advance their political or ideological views in the classroom and impose those views on students in the classroom. We received dozens of submissions that were good examples of critical race theory, of social justice, of various other types of attempts to use the classroom as a way to indoctrinate students. And then the third type of submission was a submission from individuals using the portal to express their displeasure with Lieutenant Governor Robinson or with Superintendent Catherine Truitt. I refer to these as fan fiction because they spun tales of the government trying to silence teachers and this being a witch hunt and all kind of different interesting, whimsical stories about what was going to happen after these submissions were given to the lieutenant governor. And of course, none of that occurred, but there was individuals who don't like the lieutenant governor who took a significant amount of time to express their displeasure with the lieutenant governor using the Facts Task Force portal. And so, whether we see that reoccur in the future, hopefully not. Hopefully they aired their grievances the first time around, and they can leave the portal for use by those that have legitimate complaints.
One of the things that Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson mentioned in helping to unveil the first report was that some people at the outset of the Facts Task Force said, there's no problem. There's no reason to form this group. You're not going to find anything. His response was, yes, there is a problem, and we see proof of it in this first task force report. Is he right?
He's absolutely right. And the debate over House Bill 324, this is a non-discrimination bill that is really meant to address issues of teachers trying to impose their political views on students in the classroom. That was the refrain from a lot of Democratic lawmakers, basically saying that there's no problem here. Schools aren't teaching critical race theory. Critical race theory isn't something that teachers know about. It's not something they're using in the classroom. It's not something that's informing their instruction. And so the lieutenant governor, as you said, basically said, let's see if that's true or not. Let's see if there is instances of problematic content being advanced in the classroom, being used for classroom instruction. If there's no problem, then we don't have to worry about bills like House Bill 324, and we could just tell the legislature to drop it. But if there is a problem, then I think legislation would be needed. And that's really what we saw is the lieutenant governor identifying issues in the classroom that House Bill 324 can start to address. And this legislation isn't going to solve the problem. I see this legislation as being a deterrent, encouraging teachers to really evaluate the kind of lessons they're providing in the classroom and determine whether they're appropriate and whether they're instances of classroom materials that reflect the standard course of study and what the expectations are for teachers of the content that they are expected to deliver in the classroom, or whether they're just attempts by the teacher to be able to convince students of a certain political or ideological viewpoint. And so the lieutenant governor really did a service to the lawmakers that are advancing bills like House Bill 324 in being able to outline the various concerns that I think a lot of people have about indoctrination happening in the classroom and the possibility of teachers misusing classroom time for their political or ideological viewpoints.
During debate about House Bill 324 in a Senate Education Committee, we heard one lawmaker describe the bill, the task force, the entire issue as being a Fox News-driven phenomenon. We know that Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson didn't take kindly to those remarks. Is this all a matter of right-wing conspiracy, or is there really something to this issue that we need to pay attention to?
Well, there is something to the issue, and I think if a fair reading of the Facts Task Force report indicates that there's something to worry about. Now, one thing to know about the report is it doesn't tell us the scope of the problem, but it tells us there is a problem. And I think it's important to note that we can't say that this is happening in every classroom, in every school building, and in every school district. But what we do know is certain teachers have seized upon their position and are using it and misusing it in a way I think a lot of parents and taxpayers would object to. And one of the comments that I said a few weeks ago is, where there's smoke, there's fire. And it's obvious from this task force report that the smoke is obvious. And it's indicating that there's a larger problem that will need to be addressed, not just by lawmakers, not just by the lieutenant governor, but by school boards and school administrators that honestly want to ensure that classrooms are a welcoming place for all viewpoints, and that teachers focus on the core bits of knowledge and skills that we expect our students to master in their public schools. They should not be centers of indoctrination. They should be centers of learning, and they should truly advance the interests of the public and the careers that these children are going to embark on after they graduate.
The group is called the Facts Task Force. One of its members is Dr. Terry Stoops. He is director of the Center for Effective Education at the John Locke Foundation. Thanks so much, Terry.
Thank you.